With around 250 competitors teeing off in the Scottish Boys Championship, the results can be as unpredictable as the weather. One thing that's guaranteed when this competition comes to host venue for this year, Dunbar, though, is a quality course and a good test of golf. And it has to be said this year that the weather wasn't too bad. It was fairly breezy early on in the week. Choppy waters out there in the Firth of Forth. But as the competition progressed, the weather seemed to calm down. The sun broke through the clouds and the conditions were positively balmy. The golfers could enjoy some low scoring around the middle of the week. Flat calm conditions on a wonderful course. Picking up on some of the action from the earlier rounds, here's Kieran Cantley from Liberton in his 4th round match against Matthew Dalrymple from Loch Winnoch. A nice tee shot here on the 202-yard par 3 10th. The spectators as well as the competitors enjoying the conditions. And Kieran nonchalantly dropping this putt for a nice birdie 2 on his way to a victory. Kieran making it through to the quarter-finals and one of a number of Lothians golfers performing well this week. Here's Thomas Foster from the Merchants of Edinburgh Golf Club, sinking a nice putt on the 8th in his 5th round match against Lewis Irvin from Kirkhill. And Thomas, well, he made it through to the semi-finals. Down in the bottom half of the draw, there was a real ding-dong match in the 5th round between Robbie Kemsley of Balmore and Andrew Thompson from Lanark. Kemsley here sinking a nice long putt to save a par on the long par 4 11th. At this point he was 2 down, and it's no wonder his opponent Andrew Thompson had enjoyed 6 birdies in the front 9. And it says something about this match that he was only 2 ahead. He stayed 2 ahead with that putt and went on to win the match 2-1. He also won his quarter-final match against Kieran Cantley, which set him up to face the winner of the quarter-final tie between Ross Callan of Bathgate and Michael Laurie of Deeside. Laurie was making his 4th appearance at this tournament despite only being 16. And apart from his first-round victory, the rest of his wins had been either on the 18th or 19th hole, and perhaps all the golf played eventually caught up with him as he lost his quarter-final to the Bathgate man Ross Callan, seen here playing a nice approach in the earlier rounds up to the 6th green. Callan eventually made it through to the final by beating Andrew Thompson of Lanark by 4-3. Last year's Boys Order of Merit winner and top seed for the week, Callum Fife from Codder, had enjoyed some impressive scorelines making his way through the tournament. Here we see him in his 4th round match against Brodie Good, sinking a monster putt from just off the 12th green. Fife, currently playing off a handicap of plus 3.4, was looking good for the final this week. Here we see another nice tee shot at the par 3 3rd in his 5th round match against Mark Watt. His challenge finished in the next round though, the quarter-finals, where he lost out to Carnoustie's Will Porter, who had beaten Thomas Foster in the semi-final. So there we had our 2 final opponents, Will Porter from Carnoustie and Bathgate's Ross Callan. Great to see 2 players who were introduced to the game through club golf at their respective clubs, now in the final of the National Championships, where the weather was a little more unkind, both breezier and chillier than earlier in the week, but both players seem unaffected. This was Ross Callan's eagle putt to try and go 1-up on the very first hole. Just missing to the left, and a few hardy souls out to enjoy the action. Will Porter had this for his birdie and a half. Great nerve shown by Will Porter, whose short game had been good all week. The first hole halved with birdie 4s. Down onto the second, and it was Callan's turn to sink a putt to half the hole, which he did. 2 pars, the match still all square. Over onto the 3rd, the par 3. Will Porter had played a very nice tee shot. He had this for another birdie, and it went 2 under par and 1 up as the players headed off onto the 4th tee and along the shoreline. 4th hole was halved and onto the par 3 5th, and it was Porter again with a putt to win the hole with a par 3. Now 2 up in the match and desperately trying to stay warm. The wind really did get up at this point and both golfers struggled with the conditions. The sun came and went, but the wind was a constant, the ball oscillating sometimes on the green and even on the tee. At no point did the lead get to more than 2 holes for Porter, and indeed Ross Callan clawed back the difference, and by the time they walked down the 18th, it was all square. But once again, it was Porter who had a putt to win the hole. Here, keeping his nerve, and it goes, and Will Porter, after the morning's round, was 1 up on Ross Callan. Time to head in for a little bit of respite for golfers and spectators alike. The wind had calmed down just a little in the afternoon. The sun was out most of the time. Conditions were good, and by the time we joined the action on the 8th, Porter had restored his 2-hole lead. And this is his approach after a lengthy drive on the 370-yard par 4. The wind still helping it to the edge of the green though. Nice to see the Bass Rock in the background. And this was becoming a pattern. Porter holing important putts. That moved him to 3 up. A commanding lead at this stage with 10 holes to go. Down onto the par 5 9th, and Porter again with a birdie putt. Back-to-back birdies for the man from Carnoustie. But this time Ross Callan had a chance to half the hole with a birdie putt of his own after playing up from the greenside bunker. And it went. And the score stayed at 3 in favour of Porter. Down onto the par 3 10th, and Porter with another lengthy putt, this time only for a par, but it was good enough to win the hole, and Porter moved to 4 up in the match with 8 holes left to play. Up onto the long par 4 11th, the 29th hole of the day, and Ross Callan had this putt for a par to win the hole, and he wasn't going to give up without a fight. Great determination and nerve shown there from the Bathgate man. The next hole was halved, so we move up onto the 13th, the 31st hole of the day. Callan had this for his par, which he missed. And Porter, well, it was little more than a gimme, which meant that the difference was back to 4 as the players headed on down the 32nd. That was halved, which meant that Will Porter found himself 4 up with 4 to play, and with both players having played twice here on the par 4 15th, Porter knew that if that lengthy effort had dropped, he would be the Scottish boys champion. It didn't, which meant that Callan had a lifeline to keep the match going, but this needed to drop, and it came mighty close, and it was a gimme for a par 4, but it meant that Porter had a short putt to seal the victory, and Ross Callan perhaps sensing that after a wonderful week, his chances of lifting the title had perhaps gone. Will Porter very nicely sinking that 4-foot putt for a 4-3 victory and giving him the title of Scottish Boys Champion 2015. And after some well-deserved handshakes, we caught up with Will to find out what he thought had got him over the finish line.
I think my putting was probably one of the stronger parts today. I've been working hard on that over the winter, so it seems to be working at the moment, so hopefully it can continue.
And as well as taking on his opponent, how did he feel about taking on the weather?
Well, the conditions were pretty windy this morning. It was quite lucky it died down a bit in the afternoon, but some hail, some hailstones on the second was a bit random, but it was fine. I think we've been lucky enough with the weather this week, with the sun during the middle stages of the week, so it's fine to get a bit of wind, I think, today, a bit fair. So.
And what about his opponent? Does he reflect on the disappointment of losing out in the final, or what has been a great week previous to that here at Dunbar?
I'm not disappointed at all. You're right, I had a great week. It's just been a great experience for me. I wasn't expecting to get this far, so to go out there and hit the ball the way I did and handle myself the way I did was good, and I'm happy going into later on. I've still got another couple of years at this, so you never know.
There's every chance that we'll be seeing Ross again at this tournament in the years to come, but for 2015, the Scottish Boys Champion is Carnoustie's Will Porter.